Manipulation is a huge critical thinking landmine to deal with. Learning how to combat manipulation starts with awareness and is complemented by developing techniques to deal with it. Let's first explore manipulation techniques. The arsenal of weapons for manipulation is extensive. Some basic manipulative behaviors stem from a lack of awareness, insecurity, or uncaring behavior. These include playing the victim, the silent treatment, being smug, unwarranted criticism, and guilt trips. Frequently, these behaviors can be lessened or stopped by calling them out when they occur. The worse the individual or group, the greater the manipulation. Some toxic manipulation behaviors are compulsive lying, cheating, slandering, propaganda, half-truths, divisiveness, vindictiveness, and moral superiority. Other toxic behaviors include brainwashing, indoctrination, intimidation, censorship, victimization, bait and switch, double standards, misinformation, and using guilt, fear, and force. Words have the power to bring us together or tear us apart. Experienced manipulators use words nefariously to get what they want, play with people's emotions, and use a convincing narrative that is only rhetoric without being backed up by evidence. Another technique is to modify words seemingly innocently. Slowly changing the language is analogous to boiling a frog, meaning a frog will jump out of boiling water but get cooked if the water temperature moves up slowly enough. Small word changes sound innocent but are misleading. Many people don't realize they are being manipulated. The word changes over long periods in an attempt to change how people write, speak, think, feel, and act. For example, people who came into the United States illegally were initially called illegal aliens. Next, they were called illegal immigrants or unauthorized immigrants. Then they were called undocumented immigrants or undocumented migrants. Currently, they are called non-citizens and migrants. The terms are softened over time and are designed to manipulate others to feel bad for these individuals instead of focusing on the lawlessness of their actions. It's worth noting that about 9.9 million Border Patrol and Office of Field Operations encounters from the beginning of 2021 until the end of April 2024. That is greater than the population of 40 of the 50 individual states in the United States. Drug trafficking of fentanyl and other narcotics, prostitution, child trafficking, and innumerable military-age men crossing is of major concern. The argument that this is an invasion has significant merit. For what purpose and to what end are worthwhile questions to ask. One compelling argument is an invasion for the radical left to control elections with new seats in government due to larger populations and increased hard left voting rolls. The United States is a melting pot of many races, creeds, and cultures. It welcomes all people who come in legally and willingly become part of the country and culture. However, allowing illegal entry along with drugs, crime, prostitution, and child abuse is substantially damaging to the social fabric. In the book, The Dying Citizen author Victor Davis Hanson states, "Currently, the United States is suffering an epidemic of federal offenses committed by non-citizen residents. In fact, in 2019, it was announced that 64% of all arrests by all federal authorities are on non-citizens, here both legally and illegally, although they comprise just 14 to 17% of the U.S. population, a figure that may even undercount non-citizen residents. In 2018, 26% of all federal inmates were either legal or illegal aliens." Propaganda used for manipulation. This is biased information used to push a particular political agenda or point of view. It can be a powerful tool for the manipulation of groups. The mainstream media is a major influencer, and a high percentage of the media has become increasingly political in the last several years. Many times they control the narrative, and this description can be harmful, especially when the news organization is strongly politically ideological. Instead of unbiasedly reporting top stories, numerous major news organizations use commentary to promote a political agenda. This is increasing in commonality and intensity. For example, one technique is to suppress key stories and downplay, misrepresent, or be dishonest about important facts and data while presenting other outlier stories to push a narrative and ideology. This is lying by omission and is common. The power of the media to manipulate millions shouldn't be underestimated. The critical thinker needs to continually explore all sides of important issues, research core data, and make decisions based on the evidence, not what so-called media experts may present as facts. Mass hypnosis is another major tool for the ideologically motivated. For example, in the book Delusion and Mass Delusion, author Joost A. M. Meerloo states, "Mass hypnosis tries to penetrate the minds through the association of pleasant feelings with simple slogans. This is the secret of all propaganda. A war picture displays flowers on rifles. A cigarette brand is put across with pictures of attractive girls smoking and smiling. The enemy is labeled with dishonorable adjectives." The masses are caught in fixed suggestive associations. The acceptance of one suggestive association leads to another. Every struggle against delusion must first be directed against authoritarian suggestions, against propaganda, against the fear of criticism. Joost Meerloo also states, "Confusing a targeted audience is one of the necessary ingredients for effective mind control." Divide and conquer. Class warfare is used to politicize the oppressed by politicians, special interest groups, and intellectuals. Group unrest can lead to distrust, group hostilities, and sometimes violence and death. The manipulative people who claim they are championing the oppressed gain money, power, and prestige, while the oppressed and the people being manipulated are the greatest losers. For example, when politicians use class, race, and gender division to divide voters, this leads to unrest. The politicians gain money, power, and status, and in the process, injure society as a whole. Abuse of power. Some notorious individuals use manipulative techniques to push their radical agendas and ideologies. This can be damaging and sometimes long-lasting when the manipulative person is in a position of authority, such as teachers and administrators who work with young, malleable minds. In other words, this is a clear and present danger and abuse of power. Projection. When a person projects their negative behavior onto another, this can be manipulation. This individual might be trying to deflect others from taking a closer look at what he is doing. The manipulator attempts to feel superior while negatively impacting others. Less scrutiny is given to what the exploiter is doing. Here are some examples of projection. The manipulator accuses another of doing things he is doing. Refuses to take responsibility for his actions. Attempts to control by making another person feel bad. Claims another political party is doing what his party is doing. Is good at gaslighting by trying to make another question their perceived reality. Besides people using projection, it is also a go-to manipulation technique for vile politicians to push a political agenda. For example, a radical far-left political leader attempts to deflect scrutiny about his party's nefarious ways of controlling speech, religion, and actions by accusing their political opponents, conservatives, of doing what they, the far left, are guilty of. Projection is an effective technique to guilt opponents with a conscience, who realize no one is perfect. When it works, opponents become disoriented and lose focus on what their opponent is guilty of. The people who use projection may get away with their appalling acts. Manipulative people can be spiteful and dangerous. Consider minimizing or cutting off interactions with them. If you must deal with a manipulator due to profession or personal association, strive to determine their beliefs, ideologies, and motivations. This knowledge can help you determine how to neutralize or minimize their manipulative intentions.